What's going on, everybody? My name's Steven Sherrick. I am the rear tire changer on the 38 truck for Front Row Motorsports and Lane Riggs Racing.
And I'm John McGee, front tire changer on the 41 East Motorsports truck, driven by Bailey Curry. And this week, the 53 Joey Gase Motorsports Xfinity car, driven by Thomas Annunziata. Steven, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you doing, John?
Good. I apologize. Last week we didn't end up doing an episode. Can't remember why, but it ended up being all right because I know, Steven, you weren't at Las Vegas. So it kind of would have been a short episode anyways, and I would have been talking a lot, which is not good for anybody. So we're back this week. We're both going to be going to Homestead, Miami tomorrow for the truck race for the both of us, and myself for the Xfinity race. So we should have lots to talk about this week.
Oh yeah, we got oh man. I mean, championship race coming up. There are only 4 races left in the year, and I mean, if you watched the Cup race last week, and you could even say the Xfinity race, the pressure is getting to these teams, and
Yeah.
it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like the truck championship, I saw is super close. You know, they're in their round of 8 right now, cutting down from 8 to 4. They have Homestead and Homestead and Martinsville left on the schedule, and like I saw that Rajah Caruth is like 5 points below the cutoff, and so that's going to go down to the wire. I saw he qualified really well, so. We'll see. Grant Enfinger kind of shook things up when he won at Talladega, because I think he was pretty far down. Like he was either like 7th or 8th, and then he won, so he's locked in. So that is going to shuffle everything around. In Xfinity, I know that there's been a lot of like the Roval. There's the Roval was a really
controversial race.
Yeah, intense race, controversial for sure, because there were like 3 drivers that if they won, they would have been in. It was like SVG, Parker Kligerman. At least were 2 that I know of that would have won and gotten in, and they were both like right there to do it. So
I think Sammy Smith was, or not Sammy Smith. Who won that race? Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer, I think, was a win and get in kind of guy too.
Yeah, so it's going to be really exciting and intense. It always is, but definitely for those drivers who still need to punch their ticket to the Final 4. We have this race, Homestead, and then obviously Martinsville is there's a bunch of fireworks there. There always is. I know probably the most famous example of that is Ross Chastain doing the wall ride a couple of years ago. But yeah, there's 2 races left to make it in, and those guys who are still in the playoffs are going to be doing everything they can to make it happen. So,
yeah, I mean, especially with like AJ Allmendinger winning last week at Vegas, it kind of like it really shook up the top half of the playoffs, because not a lot of people had him on their bingo card for winning Vegas. So, props to them. Happy for them. I'm glad they could seal the deal and, make a championship run. And then, on the truck side, like you were saying, Grant won the race at Talladega, and he's going back to the championship 4. He was there last year.
Yep.
So another Final 4 appearance for him. And then Joey Logano cutting it on the fuel for for trying to make his way into the Final 4 after he gets reinstated into the playoffs.
Yeah, that whole situation, was controversial, right? With the weight penalty for Alex Bowman following the Roval, was that right?
Yeah, and like everybody wants to say that, like, he lost 17 pounds between pre-race inspection and post-race inspection. But the case isn't really he lost 17 pounds. The case is really like there's a 16 or 16-pound buffer. And so with the 16-pound buffer, teams are using like 15 pounds under, like they're right there on the limit. So like, yeah, it's a 17-pound buffer or a 16-pound buffer, but like in reality, he was missing like 1 pound. Maybe even they cut it so close that he was missing like half a pound.
Wow.
And that's what was the guideline of passing and failing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't know enough about the cars or how all that works to comment. I like to give an informed comment, but what I will say is that it's just playoff racing, and like all these teams are going to take every single risk or every single cut, every single corner that they can to make things the cars as fast as possible, as light as possible. Like I know obviously the teams try and do that every week, but it gets ramped up. Um, Tenfold in the playoffs if you're competing for a championship. You do everything that you can to every advantage that you can. So it doesn't surprise me that teams are willing to do that. Potentially risk a disqualification or something along those lines in order to get the biggest advantage or have the fastest car they can out on track. So it's he got busted for it, and I'm sure they wish they didn't take quite as many risks as they did, but that's part of it, right? Like you never know, and you want to give your driver every chance that you can from a mechanical setup side, on the cars to make that happen, because there's 8 or 12 other drivers and teams that are going to do the exact same thing. So
yeah, and like Johnny was saying, everybody's pushing the limit, especially the playoff drivers. So the if they give you an inch, you're taking all the way up to that inch. Like everybody talks about
yeah,
pit road speed. I think this weekend at Homestead, pit road speed's what, 55, 45, something like that. But
somewhere in there.
they give you a 5 mile an hour buffer. So like you can go, if pit road speed's 55, they give you up to 59.9 miles an hour that you can go. And there will be some drivers that are floating on that 59.6, 59.7 area on that 5 mile an hour buffer, because you're trying to maximize every advantage you can. And if they give you that advantage, you are definitely going to take it.
Yeah, I saw some stats the other day actually about drivers who were the most efficient at going down pit road. Basically, like if you took the absolute limit on driving, the whole pit road, braking, stopping hard, getting into your box, carrying as much speed as you can to the last second, accelerating hard, getting up to pit road speed as fast as you can. I was looking, and somebody posted something about drivers that are really good at that, and that has as much of an impact on pit stop times as the actual stops themselves. We always talk about pit stall selection, like that has a lot to do with it. Whether pit stall 1 is normally the best pit stall, that way you can be at top speed for the longest distance, and you can come hard right out of the box and don't have to worry about speeding. But a lot of other stuff on pit road has a big impact on that, right? Like whether there's already a car in your box, so you have to nose in. Whether there's a car in the box in front of you when you're leaving. Whether you got to turn hard and you can't get quite as good of a launch as you normally would have. So there's all sorts of these different variables. And it's like, oh, you just see on TV, it's like, oh, this crew lost 1 or 2 seconds. Well, it's like, well, maybe the other driver who beat your driver off pit road was a half second faster on pit road, the total distance. Maybe he pushed the limit just, a tenth or 2 mph over the course of the whole pit road run more than your driver. Or maybe he was harder on the brakes, carrying speed and then hitting the brakes hard. Or maybe he accelerated and got to pit road speed just a little bit faster than your driver. So, like, the two crews could have identical times, but it depends on a lot of it is the driver on getting in and out of the box, or getting how conservatively or aggressively they want to get to that pit road limit. Um, and so I think that's a lot of variables that fans need to understand when it comes to the whole pit road cycle. And it's not just the time in the box, it's getting to your box, getting out of your box, pulling in, pulling out, all that stuff.
Yeah, and they put that graphic up there sometimes where they show, like, the driver time, the pit crew time, and then the total time.
Right. Yeah.
That all matters. Like, your pit crew could have, like Johnny said, the times are identical, but if the driver was faster at doing one thing, he's gonna have a better overall time.
Right.
And, talking about this brought me back to when we pit Jimmy Johnson last year for Daytona, and Todd Gordon told us that he liked pitting, especially at Daytona and Talladega. He liked pitting in, like, that, like, 6th to 8th pit stall, because you can get up to pit road speed, and by the time you get to pit road speed, you can accelerate all the way through because you're at the line for
Right.
pit exit.
Yeah.
So it's like it also falls on, like, driver preference, or um crew chief preference, or, like, cuz I think who was it that qualified on the pole for Vegas? I think it was like William Byron or something. But they didn't select pit stall 1, they selected pit stall 6
Hmm. Right.
for that reason,
Right. And I
because
think
you can accelerate all the way through.
Yeah, and I think they were saying too that pit stall one there at Vegas is like really slick for whatever reason. I don't know
Yeah,
why pit stall one is more slick than any of the other boxes.
who
But I
knows?
know they said that was like at 99% of the tracks you want to have pit stall one, but at Vegas for whatever reason they thought it wasn't the best advantage for them. So no, and one thing I want to get at is going back to Jimmy Johnson. Like you talk about like the little things, when you're like the greatest athlete, whether it's Tom Brady or whoever it is at quarterback, or a great NFL or NBA player, they talk about the greats did everything, even the small things they did at an incredibly high level, and that was what separated them. Jimmy was, I think, the best driver I've ever seen at getting in and out of the box. Like, he would hit the sign every time. He would be right there. He would, like, perfect every time for the pit stops, and would come out of the box hard. Like that, for him, I noticed the difference between him and any other driver that I've ever been with. Ross Chastain is close when I pitted for him in the Truck Series. Like, he's very close, but I mean, Jimmy was like dialed in at Daytona when we were there. Like, every time he was hitting he was hitting right on the sign, like carrying a ton of speed into the box, locking them up, sliding, and came out of the box hard every time.
Yeah, I remember when we were at pit practice for him, and he said, after he did our pit practice, he gets out of the car, and he goes, "Yeah, it's a little bit different than the cars I got out of the sport in, because you had to lock up the rear tires like 3 or 4 stalls away and just slide into your box and time it right and everything. This, it stops on a dime." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Okay, yeah." Like,
yeah,
you did a really good job.
yeah, yeah, and and that's the thing too with Todd Gordon. Like, he was our crew chief last year on the '84 car. He just has such a wealth of knowledge. And those crew chiefs, they're thinking, they're thinking about every little thing that could affect the race in whatever way. They're not thinking necessarily just of the setup of the car or of the driver, but they're thinking about like what's going to be the most effective way, what's going to be the fastest and most efficient way for us on pit road, like what pit stall is gonna be the best, like why, why for X, Y, and Z, these reasons are why we're gonna pick this specific pit stall, So it was really interesting, like getting into his thought process about those things, and going the extra step or two, and really dissecting like why we were doing this as a team. So um,
I remember when we went and checked, the car a couple of times, they would always ask you because you were the front tire changer about, you know, it might like, if the droop was good or if, if he needed to turn the wheel to the right or to the left a little bit, and they put those marks on the steering shaft so they could put them on the steering wheel for him, and,
yeah,
that's just, like you said, going the extra mile and thinking about those little things that, like, a crew chief, like, I don't know if they did that on the 44 car that you were pitting for, like, those little things
yeah,
add up to the entirety of the race.
right, exactly. And a lot of it is like, right, you're balancing at a lot of these super speedway tracks, even you know maybe some of the short tracks too. You got to balance pitability of the car versus speed or aerodynamic performance or setup performance, braking performance on a short track, for example, aerodynamic performance on a super speedway. And so it's like it's a balance. It's like, do you want a car that's going to be slightly slower aerodynamically, but is going to be faster to pit, or do you want to maximize your aerodynamic performance on the track and take, that hit when you go and do pit stops? Because especially in the Cup Series and the Truck Series, like those fenders are going to be the wheel's going to be tucked up in there as much as possible, and you're waiting for that tire to literally droop down, and then you're going, and I've timed it before. It's, in the Cup Series, you're waiting like 1 to 1.3 seconds for that tire to drop sometimes. So you think about that, it's like, well, that crew only ran a 10.5 stop at Daytona. Well, it's like, yeah, but you literally couldn't get the tire wasn't clearing the fender for 1.3 seconds on the right front. So it's like you add that in and stuff. So anyway, but going back, like we had these conversations with Todd Gordon, with Robbie Fairweather, our car chief, like, hey, is this droop, is this clearance going to be enough? Like, we need it to be this way for aerodynamics. Is that something you're going to work with? Do we need to, shorten it up? Do we need to tighten it up? Do we need to speed it up? Like all these things were the conversations that we had to try and find a happy medium that would, increase the pitability of the car, but also where we didn't lose, much, if anything, on track.
Yeah, and the, basically, what it boils down to is that every little thing matters. Like, when you look at the entirety of a race, you can't go back and be like, "Well, this one thing." Even you could. In
Mhm.
some instances, you could if you went a little aggressive on, the droop and it took longer, then it's like, okay, your pit stops are gonna be longer, so you might lose a spot or 2 on pit road because you were more aggressive to get more speed out of the car. So it's like you're gonna in the back of your mind that you're gonna have to make that up on the racetrack, but you could go back and think like, well, if we didn't do that, our pit stops would have been a little bit faster. Maybe we would have maintained the track position and still been able to gain spots. So it's like it's all those things that you have to think about.
Yeah.
Like, and then you have the pressure of the playoffs and
Hmm.
points and winning you're in, and and all of that has to play a factor of, are we going for stage points? Are we going for the win? What's the fuel mileage looking like? Is there going to be a fuel strategy? When are the cautions going to come out? Like, oh my God, it's terrible the way these
Right.
teams have to sit and think about this stuff now.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, Jay Guy, our crew chief on the 44 New York Racing car, Cup car, really great guy, has been in the sport a long time, was a crew chief for Front Row for a long time. I remember him telling me that at Daytona, that when they had the crew chief meeting, we picked, actually I think last, because we of our qualifying, or we were an open car, and he was talking to Alan Gustafson, the crew chief on the 9 for Chase Elliott, and was asking, there was an opening behind or in front of Chase, and Chase was a playoff driver and was, fighting for points and stuff like that. And, we knew they were going to be competitive. And Jay asked Alan, he's like, would you rather me be in front of you or behind you? Because most likely we were going to be behind them on track. And so they would have an opening in. But at the same time, like sometimes our pit strategy was literally, hey, we're going to pit second time by a lot of times just to avoid any of the mess on pit road. Like we're going to be in the back anyways. Pit stops really don't matter for us until the final stage. Like the worst thing we want to do is like get beat, somebody door us or come out of the pit road hard and side swipe us and we get damage on pit road for no reason. So I remember he was telling me he was talking to Alan Gustafson about that, and Alan said, well, we'd rather have you behind us because, if there is a last stage or something like that, like we don't want you to be coming in right when we're leaving or for you to be in the box still fueling up when we're leaving. So we like pitted behind them. And they had an opening in, I think, basically every time. So, there kind of is like a etiquette and courtesy thing. A lot of times that'll be with like manufacturers or teammates and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like pit stall selection is really important when it comes to that. I actually saw where your truck, the 38, failed tech twice today at Homestead. So I think you guys are losing pit stall selection for Martinsville, which is a big
Yeah, I saw that too.
yeah.
I don't know what they failed for, but yeah, they failed tech twice, and we lost it for Martinsville. We failed at Talladega and lost it for Homestead. So it seems to
Yeah,
be the trend right now.
Martinsville. I mean, Homestead. Like, we'll get to talking about pit road on Homestead. It's fairly normal to me. It's a lot like Las Vegas or a lot of these other mile and a half tracks. But but Martinsville pit stall selection really, really matters because
Yeah.
the pit stalls are so small, they're so tight, and then it curves around the track. So like 10 or 15 pit stalls are blind until you're like your truck or car is like right on top of you. So yeah, that'll be a big hit for Martinsville, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about Martinsville next week, but yeah, I've pit in everywhere but the curve on like the pit exit side. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty bad.
Yep. So we'll go ahead and move on to a little bit. I'll just briefly kind of recap Las Vegas. Yeah, so I mean, I was on the 35 car. Akinori Ogata was our driver. He was driven, I think, probably 10 or 15 races total in the combined in the truck and Xfinity series. But he's not the most experienced at coming in and out of the pit box. So we had a couple times where the car stalled coming out of the pit box, and we had to push him and get him going. And that, like, definitely affected our overall time on pit road for sure. I'll put it that way. I mean, coming into the box, he was fine. We were a lap down from the first time we pitted on all night, so we were coming down second time by, which was actually pretty good for us because the cars in front of us and behind us were on the lead lap. So they had an opening in and an opening out, and we had an opening in and an opening out. So it actually kind of worked for us. But yeah, we did three pit stops, 4 tire stops. But it was a little bit of a night, a more difficult night for me because Akinori was saying the car was like bouncing a lot going down into turn 1 and turn 2, and I think on 3 and 4. So normally that's a sign that the splitter is hitting the ground, and when that happens, it scrubs speed, and it just doesn't allow the car to be as fast, but it also is like really unsettles the car. You imagine you're you're braking or coasting, trying to make the corner, and your car's doing this. So it is not good for a couple of reasons. So first pit stop, I had to put a packer into the right front, and then he said it was still hitting. So I came in and we came down under caution, and I went through the cowls, which is in the opening on the hood, and I put another packer on the right front and another packer on the left front, and no tires, just fuel only, but putting those packers in. And then on the third stop, which was a 4-tire stop, I actually had to pull a packer from the left front. It was because we were doing a left rear rubber. We took a left rear rubber out and we took a left front packer out. So I think the left side was a little too high because of that. So, anyways, I was dealing with a lot of packers all day. But our first 2 stops were fine, and then we did have to come down under green for the third stop because that last stage was like uh, it was like 100 laps or something like that. So we came under green, and I didn't have my best stop of the year. I had a hanger on the right front, which for those of you who don't know, it's when you hit your lug nuts, you hit it and the lug nut comes off. It's spinning, and you can tell it's no longer on the rim, but it's still on the thread itself. And so, there's probably a half-inch to a quarter-inch gap from where the threads on the stud stop to the end of the thread. The last quarter, a half inch is smooth. So, probably about 50% of the time it's off the threads and just hanging on the smooth part of the stud. And the other half, it's on the last 1 or 2 threads. And when you try and pull, it doesn't go, and you lose a lot of time trying to do that. So it's kind of a split-second judgment call you have to make as a tire changer, whether you're going to pull it and hope for the best, or you're going to go back and hit that lug nut again to make sure it's off, or you're going to pull it and, it's still on the thread, and you have to go and hit it again. And then you probably lose 2 or 3 seconds doing that. So I don't know why I did. We were 4 laps down, but anyways, I did and lost a few seconds, and then didn't have the smoothest left front, so I probably slowed the stop down probably 3 or 4 seconds total because of that, which is not a great feeling. But at the end of the day, we got the job done, and got him back out there. So yeah, that was how Las Vegas went for me, at least. It was a long day getting out there. We flew commercial getting out there. So we had a flight at 7:15 in the morning out of Charlotte Douglas. So I had to wake up at like 4:30 to get to the airport, and then got there, went on the flight, and then we didn't fly back out of Las Vegas till like 10:35 their time, and I didn't land in Charlotte until 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. So it was like a 27-hour day. Those West Coast trips, if you do them the same day, it's just like so hard.
Brutal.
Yeah, so brutal. I know we've done those before for Phoenix, Xfinity this year, and Sonoma, and Las Vegas last year. So it's just tough. Normally, after doing this for a couple of years, I don't know about you, Steven. I know you have a family and at home. Like I normally prefer to spend as little time on the road as possible. Like for me, doing race day flights, 99% of the time is the best. But on those West Coast, it's almost I would definitely prefer to fly out the afternoon before and like stay in a hotel, get a good night's rest, and then do the race.
I think if I had my choice, yes, that's what I would choose because, like, I don't think I am pitting anything for Phoenix. So that's what I'm doing for Phoenix is flying out, doing the truck race, flying home. And the truck race is like 7, 8 o'clock Phoenix time.
Yeah.
So it's like, 10, 11 o'clock here. So it's like I don't even get home till like 3, 4 in the morning.
Right. No, I know it's really tough, really tough. So we talked about it with Kale earlier in the year when going out to Sonoma and stuff. It's like how you have to perform on a you know early morning flight out of Charlotte, time difference change, and long flight, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that was part of it. Luckily, this week it's should just be a 1 day show, but for me at least, it's going to be a tough day. We have a double header, truck and Xfinity tomorrow, 2 races in 1 day, and they're back to back. So the truck race is at 12 and the Xfinity race is at 4. So I know we're flying out at 6 in the morning
Yep.
and getting there at I think around 8 or so, and then immediately going to the track, doing the truck race, and there's not a lot of time between the truck and Xfinity races, so it's like getting. I like it because it's a good payday. Like you get 2 races in 1 day, and you don't have to stay the other day. But at the same time, it's really hectic, you know.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of glad I don't have to
Mhm.
do the double header. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go down there, do one race and be done. Chill the rest of the day.
Yeah. I don't know why they don't do it later. The Xfinity race. I don't know why they do it at 4 instead of 6 or something like that. But
Well, I'm still trying to figure out why we do truck on Saturday and not Friday. So
yeah, yeah, I don't know. But it's I'm not the one who makes the schedules. I just got to do it. But
yeah,
let's just say the truck race ends at 2 or 2:30. You have an hour and an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the most to get everything ready for an Xfinity race. And for kind of just perspective, like normally we want at least 3 hours to get everything ready. So who knows, man? It's gonna be. We'll get through it. We'll get it done. But at the same time, it's like it's a scramble. You don't really feel like you're good until the Xfinity race starts. So
yeah, yeah. No, I know. I last year I almost fell out of that race because I was so overheated. Like I was stuffing ice bags in my fire suit because I was so overheated.
yeah,
But now I don't have to worry about it this year.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about the travel. We talked a little bit about the setup of the race. Steven, do you want to kick us off by kind of starting or letting your opinion about the pit road at Homestead, Miami, or kind of like race strategy or anything in particular that you're um, going to keep in mind going down to Homestead tomorrow?
uh it can be a little like the pit box can be a little greasy because of the sand that's there and the heat. But I mean, other than that, it's it's a little slick, but not really. You can spray some of that PJ1 or whatever they have down, and it's usually pretty good. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I would be concerned about is right side damage because of the way they run this racetrack. They run it so close to the outside wall. Like you're gonna watch maybe first like 10, 15 laps, the race is going to go green, and you're going to see trucks and cars everywhere on the racetrack. And then slowly but surely, they're all going to migrate to the top of the racetrack, and that's where they're going to stay the whole race. So there is a very, very good chance your truck's going to hit the wall. And you just, you're either going to need to pull the fenders out or just change the tires and let it go because it's not going to be a very hard impact. Like if you blow a front tire and hit the wall, but it's gonna be enough to rub the letters off the Goodyear letters off the tires. So it's gonna be like a you got to be ready for what kind of right side damage do you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much like the only thing that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, to me, I think there's a couple tracks where it's like that, like Darlington for sure is notorious for the Darlington stripe, the way that they run that. Kansas, it can also run the top, and definitely Homestead for sure. Miami, it's going to be a lot of running up towards the wall. So yeah, that's one thing we talked about at our pit practice this week was just being ready with damage repair, expecting right side damage, or you might have to pull fenders, or you might have not you might not have to pull a fender, but it's gonna make getting the tire in and out of there a little harder. So you're really gonna have to concentrate on your pulls or on your hangs and make sure they're, you know, right where they need to be, because it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. Um, the only other thing I have is, if I remember correctly, I think like the actual like pit wall itself is like really wide, and there's a whole bunch of like stuff behind there. There's like a bunch of like electrical conduit. There's a bunch of like
Oh,
water pipes,
yeah.
stuff like that. And so you can like really like get there's a lot of obstructions that can mess up your like hose and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, there's,
um,
like, stuff that, like, the hose can get, like, hooked on and
yeah,
stuff, like, behind the
exactly.
wall. Oh my god, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, or there's like cracks in between. They're like, I think they're literally like kind of like barriers, and there's like cracks where so your toes can get caught in that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of important to talk to your pit support guys and be like, hey, there's a lot of stuff back here. Like if you see my hose get caught on anything, or just kind of guide it and make sure it's away from all that stuff. But that's really the only thing that I've noticed that's different about Homestead. It's just that behind the wall and on the actual pit wall itself is a little like there's a lot of it's like kind of a jumbled mess behind there on the
Yeah.
on the cold side of the wall. But like you said, it's a little slick, but it's a mile and a half. Like the pit boxes are going to be like um, pretty normal size. They're going to be about the same size as Las Vegas and Texas and Charlotte, and Atlanta's are a little bit smaller, but I mean they're going to all be in that size. They're all going to be straight. There's nothing like that you're going to be going around the corner for. There's nothing that is really noteworthy other than, like you said, it might be a little slick, and the actual pit wall itself as a tire changer can be a little just something an extra challenge, because there is a possibility that your hose can get caught up on something that's on the wall. So
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's like you said, a standard track. Have to worry about that stuff behind the wall. There's a lot of teams that'll, like, tape off the
yeah,
stuff and, like, put tape over that stuff so that way the hose can have a lesser chance to catch it on its way out.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, other than that, I mean, it's gonna be a fun race. The truck race is gonna be good because you got a lot of teams fighting for playoff spots, and I I think I come on here and I say it every week that the Xfinity race is probably gonna be the best race you watch all weekend, and yeah, there's gonna be guys, running the top, running the bottom, running the middle.
yeah,
You know, you're gonna see them 2 wide, 3 wide, 4 wide. They're gonna be sliding all over the place. It's gonna be great, and, uh and yeah, we're gonna have some comers and goers, and it's gonna be a great race to watch.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be again, everything's at a heightened level. Like the pit crews for those guys who are in the playoffs, obviously, are going to want to be clean and have fast stops, but also like mistakes can be really detrimental. So it's the same time like going as fast as you can and having a great stop to get your driver out there, but also like you're going to be right on the edge of making a mistake versus having a really fast stop. So, it's something you manage, like making sure lugs are all tight. You don't have any, penalties that would force your driver back. At the big thing, you just don't want to take your driver out of the race, as a pit crew. Like,
Yep.
yes, at the end of the day, ideally you'd like to maintain or gain the spot every time, but as long as I don't think you take your driver out of the race by losing like multiple spots every time, or having a big penalty that drops him back to the rear of the field, like I think that's going to be the most important thing. Is just who can be the most consistent and the cleanest for those playoff pit crews, and that's going to be. I think that's going to be the big key.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the race at Vegas, you could see that like the season is definitely taking a toll on these guys. And they talk a lot about the drivers and how like the drivers have all this pressure and the drivers are talking about this and the drivers are, worried about points and the drivers are worried about track position and all that stuff. Well, it boils down to the whole team as well. And like the pit crew guys, like there's a there's probably more pressure on pit crew guys than there is the drivers because the driver can make a mistake and then the driver can recover from said mistake. But if you make a mistake on pit road, you could end the whole race day there.
Right.
Like, I mean, you look at someone like the 5 pit crew last week, like they had one of the most disastrous pit road mistakes I've ever seen, where all they did was just leave a wheel loose, but it turned into leaving a wheel loose to having a 45-second pit stop and then having to come back down because they didn't change one of the tires because they were so messed up with all the other stuff that was going on.
Right.
So it's like the pressure is on for everyone involved when it comes to running for a championship. And, I did it last year and there was an obscene amount of pressure on me to be perfect and go out there and do the same thing every time and hit my marks.
Yep.
But you still have to be able to perform. And when stuff happens, you need to be able to overcome.
Exactly. Yep. A lot of it is like dealing with pressure and I know you had a firsthand experience in that and being with Grant Enfinger racing for a championship last year. And it's like, you want to do the best job you can. But it's like, all eyes are on you and the pit stops always have a big impact on the race, but especially when you're going for a championship. So,
yeah,
no doubt. So, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a good race. I really like Miami as a track. I think it's a favorite of mine. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a top 5 track, but it's definitely like I like it a lot. I think it's good to get down there, especially later on in the year. It'll be pretty warm, so it's always as the weather starts to cool down. Like I do kind of like going down to somewhere where it's a little bit warmer, not like blazing hot, but and then we'll go back to Martinsville the week after. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's like 50 degrees on race day or something like that. So.
Yeah, well, that's what I saw here in Charlotte. Like tomorrow is supposed to be like a high of like 85, and then Sunday's supposed to be like 65 degrees. I was like, what?
Yeah, like tomorrow it says I'm checking the weather now. It's like 84. It's gonna be like high of 84, low of 72. So it'll be an awesome atmosphere down there, and I'm sure the races are gonna be really good. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to get down there and run this race. I look forward to this race. I really like this racetrack.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite mile and a half. I'll say that much. I will.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it is.
Yeah.
Kansas is really good. Kansas has some good racing too, but I think this is my favorite.
You always bring up Kansas. You're like Kansas. I love Kansas.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess I was born in Kansas. Fun fact for the viewers.
Oh, that must be it then.
I only lived there for 2 years. I don't remember really anything about it, but I don't know. There's not a. So later on in the year, our plan is to do kind of a tier list ranking our favorite track. Well, ranking each track. So we'll do that, and we'll have some opinions on that, which I'm sure you guys will either agree with or not agree with. But
Johnny, Kansas, number 1.
There's not a lot of tracks that I like dislike. Most of them, it's like you ask me about. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I don't know. I like it. There's not really a lot that I dislike. I don't know, Steven, do you have any tracks that you just don't like?
Um, no, not really. I mean, like, yeah, no, I don't think I have any tracks that I'm like, no, I hate going there. Like, I wish we wouldn't go there.
Yeah. The only one that I kind of is like, the travel's so long to go out there and do Sonoma. But when I get to Sonoma, I'm like, oh, this is actually like a really cool track. I like the racing there. I like it's in a beautiful area. The only thing that stinks about it is that it's just so far away. I don't know.
Yeah.
If I had to say, I don't know why this is the case. I don't like Richmond. Like that would be my least favorite track. I don't know why. I think it's just mediocre in like everything. Is the way that I would think about it. I think the racing is mediocre. I think the facilities are mediocre. I think it's like
Not the
kind of far enough away
facility.
where you have to drive like 5 hours or fly to get there. It's like it's okay for me, I guess. But it's not like, oh man, I hate Richmond. It's just it's just mediocre for me.
Yeah, it's not I hate Richmond. It's just if we didn't go anymore, and I would
Well,
be upset.
you know what? We're only going once next year, so
You're halfway there to not going
maybe
anymore.
maybe I agree. I don't think Richmond should be off the schedule, but I don't think Richmond should have 2 races. I'll put it that way. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy Richmond has 1 race. Here's another thing. As much as I talk about Kansas, I think Kansas should only have 1 race too.
Oh, I agree. We've said it on here before that we both agree that each track should only have one race.
Yep. Yeah, I would. I think really there's probably 3 to 4 like crown jewel tracks that should have a second race. In my opinion, if we are going to do that. But yeah, like I don't think Las Vegas should have 2. I don't think Phoenix should have a second race. I don't think Kansas should have a second one for sure. Like in that street, if we just did that, that would open up 3 spots on the schedule, which I think would be beneficial to getting some more tracks on that we normally don't race at. Like I don't get the whole thing that like, oh, you know, intermediate stink, but like let's have 2 races at Las Vegas, let's have 2 races at Kansas, let's have 2 races.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would like to see Kentucky back on the schedule. I don't think Kentucky is any worse racing than Texas or Las Vegas or any of the other mile and a halfs that we go to. I don't know why there's not a. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think I I would like to see maybe one more road course. I know that might a lot of fans think we
Oh.
should, but I wouldn't mind having like Portland on the schedule. I wouldn't mind having you know Gilles Villeneuve up in Montreal on the schedule.
Well, see, that's a racetrack I'd love to go back to
Yeah,
because the Xfinity Series used to go there, but now they don't.
I
So
wouldn't mind that. I would
yeah,
not
me
mind
neither.
it at all. So, but again, I'm not the one who makes the schedule. So.
Yep. Well, that's gonna do it for today's episode.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and next week we'll have the Homestead breakdown with the Martinsville preview, and yeah, we'll let you know how it goes, and hopefully one of us can walk away with something good.
Yeah, I mean, we qualified 11th. Bailey Curry in the 41. He finished here top 5 last year, so I'm hoping for a good run.
Yeah, we qualified 13th, so
Yeah, you
we're right
guys
behind
always
you.
run. You guys always seem to do that. Qualify in the middle, there in the middle teens, and then end up making a run and winning. Or finishing good. So that's not an end all be all for you guys to qualify 13th. So yeah, hopefully we both have good races, good finishes, and we have some good news to report when we get back with you guys next week.
Yeah. So we'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, you guys be good.